Yes, and welcome to Middle-earth Talk Radio. I'm your host, Hawk, and through the wonders of the Internet, this time using Google Plus Hangout, and locally, we have Michael Martinez on the web. Say hello there, Michael.
Hello there, Michael.
And locally, we have here Brian Hughesland. Welcome, everybody, to the live broadcast at Tolkien Moot VIII with a live audience here and online.
Yay!
So, I have a question, Hawk. Where are you? I'm seeing two pictures of you, and I don't see you.
I'll put it over here if you want.
Okay.
There we go. That way, actually, Brian and I.
Brian, you look real eensy-teensy. Very nice to meet you by video.
We're using the same kind of special effects as in The Lord of the Rings, where you just put one person really close to the camera.
You got the wrong guy in the forced perspective position. I've seen pictures of you two together, and I know he's much taller than you.
He could smash me with his thumb.
He could, yeah.
Yes.
That looks really, really, I don't know, bad.
Okay, and that one over there too. No, don't worry about that. Never mind. Okay. So, Michael, what do you have for us today?
Oh, stop that. You do that every episode. Michael, what do you have for us today? Do you ever come prepared for one of these things?
From time to time, but I've been juggling a convention this weekend.
So, I checked in on Tolkien Moot a couple of times this weekend after talking to you. There was no sound, man.
No sound on what?
On YouTube. It's just a bunch of guys silently playing. You know, there was no roll of the dice. So, I want to know, was there yelling and screaming? Was there passion? Was there fighting?
From time to time, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there was some heated discussions, even.
And much consternation.
Yes, much consternation, and lots of orc assassinations.
So,
preferably by poisoned arrows.
Those of you in the viewing audience, next year we will have closed captioning. You heard it here.
Oh!
Okay.
That's a big promise.
We can something.
I think you have plenty of slave labor there to deal with it. Everybody can sit there. Hawk can figure out a way to use SMS messaging, you know, maybe through Twitter or something, so that everybody can tweet what they're doing. You know, just killed an orc. Just got a D critical.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. So I'm sure other people have done it. You wouldn't be the first. By the way, Hawk tells me that you guys used the One Ring for the weekend.
Game, yes, by Cubicle 7.
Let's pull the audience. Since I can see the audience, I don't know if anybody else can see the audience.
3 different game systems.
So, show of hands, guys. How many like the One Ring game?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Oh, there we go. Hands. Okay.
Oh, for a little lag, remember, kind of satellite here. Yeah.
It's not like we're beaming to the moon and back, okay? So, all right. There you go.
Now, the others played GURPS and AD20, so it was a variety of people.
Well, we don't need to get into the gastrointestinal role-playing situation. Steve Jackson will never invite me to talk on one of his panels, but that's okay. Okay. So, you want to know what I have prepared for you?
Well, for all of us.
Well, I meant all of us. That was the plural you, inclusive of me.
Excellent.
Okay? See, you is shorter than all of us. All right, so how many of you have read Christopher Tolkien's interview with Le Monde?
I have not.
Nope.
I read it. I read it in the original French, and it didn't make any sense to me, so I used Google Translate to read it in badgered English. It's not how I would normally describe it, but since we're recording this for posterity and people are watching, I'll say badgered English. So basically, Christopher Tolkien has now finally come out and shared his opinion with the world of what he thinks of Christopher Jackson's 3 Lord of the Rings movies.
So that is confirmed. It's not just another rumor about 3?
Or is it referring to the Lord of the Rings movies?
Hawk. You know, when I say Lord of the Rings movies, I'm talking about the Lord of the Rings. You know, 2001, 2002. That's okay. You're tired. You've had a long weekend. So after 9 years of speculation and rumor and falsehoods, the internet now can finally tell everybody that Christopher Tolkien legitimately hates the idea of Peter Jackson movies based on his
I
father's
always
book.
knew it.
Yes, there was not much of a stretch of the imagination. He basically, now, keep in mind I was reading a Google translation of an article in a magazine. Who knows what he actually said and what language he actually spoke it in. But basically it came out as they made an action film for 15 to 25-year-olds. So all of those of us who fell outside of that age range at that time, I guess metaphorically we were still 15 to 25-year-olds.
Wow. So he pretty much said it was an adolescent flick.
Well, the family is kind of, or at least the family that's involved with managing the literary estate, they seem to be upset at the way that the movies have overshadowed the books. Even though the movies have driven tens of millions of new sales in books for the Tolkien works, which they're happy about that part, people are using the movies as a general reference point in popular culture, which I think was to be expected.
Yeah, that's not a surprising thing.
Usually the movies ruin the book.
You'll want to make sure you speak up when you speak.
Usually the movies ruin the book.
Well, okay, so I've never yet seen a movie that actually touched a book. The book always remained the same after the movie came out. But I think that...
Yeah.
Usually the books ruin the movie.
I think the book ruled popular culture for several decades, and now the movie's just going to do it. And that's probably part of the problem that the Tolkien family has.
I thought I heard a statistic that prior to the movies, about 100 million copies of The Lord of the Rings had been sold, and then since the movies, another 50 million had sold.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So it definitely shot up book sales. I mean, keep in mind, Lord of the Rings came out in 1950, 60, 50.
Late 50s, early
Yeah.
60s.
So from there all the way until about 99, 2000, 100 million, which is nothing to sneeze at. But then just in the time from around 2000 to now, 12 years or so, another 50 million, in 1/4, 1/5 the time. That definitely helped the book sales, that's for sure. Certainly helped the estate out, not just enterprises.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think the Tolkien family's in an interesting place because in some ways if you're guarding or if you're trying to watch over the literary estate, I mean that in some ways your agenda is going to be literary instead of a broader look at the storyline and something that was bigger than Tolkien in the first place has really grown beyond him and yet still has a lot of meaning and it's worthwhile because of its influence on pop culture and on movie making in general. So it's unfortunate that they see it mostly in a negative light.
I love how the camera just catches my reaction here. Normally when Hawk and I record these episodes, I don't get to see my reaction. Hawk does, though.
Yeah.
So.
This is, to everybody, this is the first time we've tried to do Middle-earth Radio or Tolkien Moot with the Google Plus Hangout, so this is something new. I am simulcasting over the usual audio stream on middleearthradio.com on stream 4, so that's streaming.
You're going to have to invent an Entish name for this. It's Middle-earth Radio Tolkien Moot YouTube or something like that.
Well, what would be Entish for Hangout? It would probably take a year to say, but...
Well, I don't know. Probably take us a year to figure it out.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Insight, I was looking for some interesting questions from my Middle-earth site yesterday, and I looked at a forum where somebody said, well, how many Ints were there to begin with? And someone else replied, this is probably a good question for Martinez. And I've never tried to figure out how many Ints there originally were. I don't think there's enough stuff to do that. But
I don't imagine Tolkien. I mean, we don't even know where the ant wives went and what the ratio was.
Oh, I think we know where the ant wives went.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they went to the old Endwives Club.
Oh!
I'll never live that one down. So, there's another bit of Tolkien news that came out. I don't know if you saw this. There's a rumor that they're going to publish a book, The Fall of Arthur, which was a poem that Tolkien did in modern English using the same meter that the Beowulf poem used. And
That Beowulf used?
right. I think there was like 8 steps per line, but don't hold me to that.
Hexameter, I think that's called, yeah.
So,
Octameter, yeah.
I don't know. It's a rumor right now. It's making its way around the web, and it'll be interesting. Tolkien, of course, didn't have many pleasant things to say about the Fall of Arthur, but not the fall, but the Arthurian myths. He just doesn't seem to be their biggest fan if you read his letters.
Well, Michael, wasn't that because he saw them as primarily a continental, more French invention or addition that had really taken on a kind of a different life of its own and kind of lost its British or English kind of roots, or even Welsh roots? Would you say?
I think that's the general perception, but I don't know what the truth is. Nobody really cares about the truth anyway. They just care about the general perception. So, I'm sorry. I seem to be the only person who can speculate and be accused of speculation, whereas when other people speculate, they're not accused of anything. It's tough to be at the top. Wow, that was interesting feedback. Thank you. I'll take that into consideration. So I guess there's one other piece of news that came out of that little get-together in San Diego, which was what was that called? Marvel Adventure Con, or they had so many big movie franchises there. Fringe may do a movie. Yes, that came out of Comic-Con this weekend.
Fringe?
Fringe.
The TV series Fringe? Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So they're hinting that there may be a Fringe movie, sort of in an X-Files way. I don't know if you guys watch Fringe, but when Fringe was in this first season, it was being unfavorably compared to X-Files. And, of course, now that we're into the 5th season here, people have forgotten about the X-Files connection, and now there's going to be talk about a Fringe movie, so we will be probably inundated with more X-Files comparisons. Say it's just like X-Files.
How well did the X-Files movie do? I don't know that it did that well.
I thought they did a couple of them.
Oh, they did more than one, huh?
I don't remember. I remember the Bee. That was at the end of the first one. I don't know if there was a second one.
Maybe this will have to be the Y-Files.
The Y-Files?
X, Y, Z. That's what
Or just why.
Yeah.
What's the point? There you go.
Can you see the X-Files and Tolkien, do a crossover there? The Entwives are out there, Scully. I know it. These lame jokes go over about as well when Hawk and I record this stuff, too. He puts on a laugh track. All right. So there was another big piece of news that came out of Comic-Con with Peter Jackson hinting that he might do 3 movies, okay? And basically, people are going, wait a minute, there wasn't even enough material in The Hobbit for 1 movie. He's already blown it up to 2. Where's he going to get the rest of his material? From the appendices.
Right, of course.
So maybe we'll see like a history of the dwarves or something in there. That would be kind of cool.
That would be awesome.
Not that it would be faithful to Tolkien. Well, I mean, I think he does a lot of things faithful to the spirit of the story. He just doesn't, follow the details closely, which is probably one of the reasons why Christopher Tolkien's not too happy about the movies. But
You
were saying something?
He tries to get the feel of it across.
Well, I think he tries to get the feel of the characters, and as much as he can match New Zealand to what the books describe, I think he does a pretty good job there too. Where most people seem to get upset is he just changes the storyline, throw a character out.
Next.
I found myself defending those movies a few times on those points, but really, it's his story to tell now, cinematically.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, 1,000 years from now, probably the Tolkien family won't care. Maybe.
Yeah. 1,000 years. Well, who knows? Who knows what that'll be? I mean, how old is Shakespeare now?
400 years ago.
Yeah,
400 years.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Still a young whippersnapper.
Yeah.
I know Howard Shore is continuing to write the musical scores, and looked at some of the interviews they've done with him in the last year, and he's really excited at just the composition. He's been working on The Hobbit and working for somebody like Jackson. He feels that he does a pretty good job of creating, plot-rich stories. Of course, he's got great material to work with. And I'd forgotten that Howard Shore actually used to be the one who was doing the music for Saturday Night Live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
For quite a few years.
Oh.
Yeah.
So people should be telling him they want more cowbell.
No, thank you.
I didn't actually see that skit until recently.
Yeah.
A friend of mine was going on. He was quoting from the skit endlessly. It was like, more cowbell, golden vapors. And I'm going, what? What is all this? So he showed me a video on YouTube. Now I can't get it out of my head.
When we went, was it last summer? We went to the EMP in Seattle.
Yes.
The Experience Music Project.
Oh yeah.
And they have a whole section there, and against one wall down a corridor, it says, need more cowbell, just painted across the top of the doorway there. It was in the studio area where you get to play all these different instruments and record stuff.
Yeah.
So
That's had a lasting effect. That one little ridiculous skit.
It has its own Wikipedia article, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So
It's a Saturday Night Live meme.
But that
Basically.
there's just a place of music within the Tolkien stories. I think that's one consistency, is that although they don't have maybe as many poems, etc., music still plays a pretty important role, doesn't it? Whether it be in the medium of movies or in the books.
Well, I think they did a pretty good job of including the songs in the first three movies.
Well, there's some. Certainly in the extended editions, we get more of that.
Okay, so we didn't get the Lay of Nimrodel. Okay, Orlando Bloom dodged that bullet, but
I'm not even sure he can sing.
What about? I guess they did sing it in Elvis, the Mythrender missing.
They squeezed a few songs into those movies.
Again, that's in the extended edition, isn't it?
Well, they could have put a lot more in special features or something.
Yeah, I would have liked. I don't know if maybe it's not on here. If it's on here or not, I have the Blu-ray extended in addition to the regular DVDs, so we'll get it used to launch stuff.
Sure.
And for example, the Ultimate Matrix collection had a DVD of just all the music on there that you could set up, and it wasn't. And you can't even get it through CD, all of it, but it's all on the one DVD. I know there's the music of the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, but a lot of them seem to be missing all the other tidbits. It seems to be hard to get all the little sounds and songs that were throughout the movies in any single source, unless you're aware of something that offers that. Anyone?
Well, what about the Hobbit films?
Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
No, well, don't say such things. Oh, now they're going to come through the door.
But there's quite a few possibilities. We'll have to see what they do with the Hobbit, with the first movie.
I'm looking forward to the scene where they have the U.S. Air Force Choir come in and celebrate the victory in Dale. Because that's one where the Eagles come in, So
Sure.
I'm just saying,
We know they've recorded. They've shown a snippet of them singing "Far Over Misty Mountains Cold." They do sing
They've
that.
kept that.
And
And you know that they have plans to release the 40-minute version on vinyl.
Right. No, that's with break the dishes and crack the plates. Yeah.
That's what Bilbo Baggins did.
Yeah, so that one's in there too. I've seen a clip of that, I think.
Brian, did you have some topics you wanted to discuss for today?
Well, kind of a piggyback on what we talked about earlier, but it's interesting that the comment you were making, Michael, about kind of maybe some negative feelings about the movies being out there for 15 to 25-year-olds, I think you said.
That's a direct translation of a quote that might be accurate.
Exactly. Well, but something like that. I think one of the things that is interesting is just saying, how can we make the story of Middle-earth accessible to young people? And I think what's successful is it seems to be that, you don't just, let the books speak for themselves, but you try to find as many different kind of ways to, take that story and let it speak through, whether it be, obviously, the movies have been hugely successful if you're just looking at number of people, young people. We've been playing, RPGs this weekend. I guess I was wondering, what are some different other avenues that we've seen this as technology increases in lots of different ways? Do we see, kind of looking forward in the 21st century here, what are some other ideas or ways in which maybe in the future we might see or already are seeing a younger...
You're calling for holo books, okay? We want Star Trek holodecks, and we want holo novels where we can go in and we can be Bilbo Baggins or Gandalf. Wouldn't it be cool to be Gandalf and leave the dwarves stuck on the edge of Mirkwood Forest so that you don't have to go in there? And, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what wizards do. They set you up for the fall, and they let you take it. I want to go back to something that you said. Christopher Tolkien's criticisms of the movies. I think they represent a philosophical box that he's put himself in. And after I say this, any remote chance I ever had of working with the Tolkien estate will probably be gone now. But Christopher Tolkien, I believe, wants the story appreciated as literature. He doesn't want it sized down for children or brought forward into the 21st century. He wants people to value the literary creation itself. And there's certainly a lot of merit in that conservatorship. But I think that what he's denying himself is appreciation of story, as his father expressed it. And story doesn't limit itself to one speaker or one medium of expression. Story goes on from generation to generation, and it grows. And that's part of the theme of The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, was that they were handing these traditions on from generation to generation and adding to the story, which was ever unfolding. And The Lord of the Rings, as a literature, is growing as story. So I think it's inevitable that you have to see all these different adaptations. You have it on stage, you have it on radio, you have it in the movies. Eventually there will be a TV adaptation, I'm sure. But this growth in expression is a part of what I would call story, and literature is only a small part of story. And I think Christopher is wrong to try and contain it within the boundaries of literature when it really exceeded those boundaries long ago and has been growing as story. So I don't know if there's an academic theory that explains all that, but if there's not, I want credit for it. Well, laugh.
That's a good comment, Michael.
Y'all didn't see that movie, did you? David Bowie. What was the David Bowie movie where he plays the Goblin King?
Oh, that's Labyrinth.
Labyrinth, yeah. Well, laugh.
Yeah,
okay,
right?
they're tired. These poor kids. Talk's making them sit there and watch three old guys talking about the Lord of the Rings, you know?
Sorry.
I'm sorry, Brian. I cut you off. I normally just cut Hawk off, and now I'm cutting you off. So go ahead, Brian. What were you saying?
Thank you. I feel you've been really generous to share that with me. cutting me off, that is. So I think that's a pretty good point. And good stories always outgrow themselves.
And so now it's moot.
Moot, haha.
That's a moot point.
Anybody here have a topic, questions you'd like to ask Michael or Brian or myself? Topics you've had questions about related to Tolkien or offshoots of it? Yes, Brian.
Do you think video games are going to have a huge revival with Hobbit movies?
Good question.
Revival?
No, they've been kind of simmering down the rights and stuff. They've been.
The Lord, you mean the
Lord,
Tolkien-related
yeah,
video games? Really? Yeah, I guess Lotro's probably not as hot as it
It's
was.
been going down.
I probably need a whole new overhaul.
There's been a fair amount out, it seems like, in the last 2 years or 3 years related to War in the North and some of the kind of between, I think with the Hobbit movies coming out too, you have this more interest in, what happened before the Lord of the Rings? Or what happened in between the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings? And that's where a lot of these stories are set. And even, although this isn't so much the video game side of things, but the One Ring RPG, we've been using that particular system, and that's kind of packaged, although you can adapt it, it's kind of saying, hey, let's explore this time period in between.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's really true. They're kind of exploiting, if that's the right word, maybe mining or delving that for more of the video game side of things. Any thoughts on that, Michael or Hawk?
Actually, I do have a thought, but if Hawk has a thought, Hawk, you should go first while you direct the people in the background there.
Well, yeah, so one of the things is that,
Iron Crown Enterprises with Merck, the Middle Role playing back then, they focused on Third Age 1640 mostly, and kind of that whole time period around then. They thought that was the spot to use, to focus on. And so it's just picking these different pockets that allow enough freedom that there's material there to work with, just as I did with the Wandering Days adventure here with the Hobbits for the campaign. Enough information to give some ideas and some specific Tolkien quote-unquote canon, there's that word, and but allow enough freedom because it's not all spelled out. You do something during the War of the Ring, and it's really from 3018 to 3019, that's really regimented and detailed what happens during that time period. But you have other areas, as you get it further out, you have longer and longer gaps where there's a lot going on that's hinted at, but the details weren't finished and allow a lot of opportunity to fill in the blanks. And I think that's important. That's something I think Decipher's Lord of the Rings really didn't get. They focused so much on the movies and didn't really pick a time period, an area to build on. Now, my only concern with the One Ring's focus right now, and they'll build over time hopefully, is that right now it's so narrow in the location. The time's okay. They cover a 30-year time period, and that's fine. But it's just Wilderland. Now, there's 2 other supplements supposed to come out and cover 2 other areas, and they have add-ons and such. And over time, hopefully that will improve.
Mm-hmm. I think you're being unfair to Decipher.
To the whom?
To Decipher.
Really?
Well, their license came out of the movies. It didn't come out of the books. So they didn't,
None of the role-playing games come from the books. ICE's was Tolkien Enterprises as well, which is the movie rights and not the actual book rights. That's why Iron Crown Enterprises got in trouble for doing that.
But Tolkien Enterprises actually owns merchandising rights for the books.
Merchandising rights, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were literary licenses from Tolkien Enterprises. Now, what are they, Middle Earth Enterprise, or what are they calling themselves?
Right.
So that were based on they were literary licenses. Toy Vault had one of those literary licenses, and it was taken away from them when the movies came out. I don't know where the One Rings license is. I thought that I forget the game developer's name. Boy, and he links to my website too.
Francesco Nepatello.
Francesco, thank you. So yes. I think he mentioned that his game's based on the book, isn't it?
Well, okay, but so is Decipher. Chris Seaman worked on the Moria module for Decipher and helped with some of the Decipher core rules. And he talks about, in some of the earlier Mercons, about the restrictions they're under, that it had to be in the books. It wasn't about, Decipher did have the same rights, just reduced, they were more enforced than it was under Iron Enterprises. But Tor has basically the same rights as Decipher did, but they used a lot more of the movie. They used all the movie photos and all this. Rather than get original artwork, they really tried to cash in on the movie, but they had the same rights as Tor does.
All right, I misunderstood that.
Yeah.
So, well, let me go back to the original question, which was, are the Hobbit movies going to reinvigorate the video games? I would say no. I don't think so.
Really?
I think that the video game technology is pretty much fatigued, and people are getting kind of worn out. And sure, there will be a little bit of a surge, but I think the audience is waiting for the next step in video game technology, and we've seen experimental movement in that direction. I think what you're going to get is interactive gaming technology. So take the Kinect. Now you can put yourself as a character into some of these virtual environments. Imagine being able to do that with 100 people across the internet, where you're all adventuring in Middle-earth. You're all playing your own characters. That's going to be a massive multi-online virtual character environment or something like that.
So more bag or something?
Well, I'm not going to try and coin a name for it. Somebody probably already has. I think that's where they're going with it.
You realize how inaccurate and flawed and...
But that's
Kinect sucks. It's going to take a long time for it to get anywhere close to that.
Well, it might, though.
Well, I mean, if they come up with something besides the Kinect.
Version 3.0.
I was hoping for something...
It's too crappy to keep up.
Of course, on the other hand, we might always hope for something lower scale, like Angry Birds Lord of the Rings version.
There you go.
I mean, the trend in mobile gaming today is mobile and casual, which is really depressing, but true.
So somebody's going to come out with an Angry Hobbits droid game. I think...
Stop on the Hobbits.
I think that virtual avatar adventures are coming. If they're not being developed, somebody in the gaming industry needs to be shot and replaced with someone who has real imagination. And I realize that the technology is not yet there, but it's close. It's very close.
Things like Second Life and such, they're really trying to iron that out.
Well, Second Life is so first, second millennium, Second Life is second millennium technology. It was developed in the 90s, man.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, but they're trying to work out some of the social, cultural issues related to an online environment like that. Yes, they're using older technology, but some of those things. There's a lot of research, PhDs being written on those environments and trying to go, okay, how do we take what we've learned from this to the next level in a full social.
Okay, I can't. I have to do this, Hawk. Show of hands in the audience. How many of you care how many PhDs are behind a game you play? Raise your hands higher. I can't. Oh, give me a break. You do not.
I totally care.
So you're in the gaming store and you go.
I don't like
I PhD. Yeah. Oh, look. 5 PhDs worked on this game. I must buy it. Sorry. I'm not going to buy a game based on how many PhDs worked on it.
No, of course not. It's part of the whole evolution of data and information and concepts to trigger the next new ideas. But there's a lot of information. I've been reading a number of books related to that, and it's pretty interesting. The changes in evolution that's happening so quickly in our culture related to these virtual environments. You're talking about older technology. I mean, Facebook and the others, they're social environments, but they use, very old technology approaches. And, they go back to the BBSs with a lot of what they're doing.
Well, I don't really consider Facebook to be a social environment.
Okay, it's not, well, they have their social games, but
I've never played a game on Facebook. I've never played a game on Facebook. So.
And I haven't either. I get invited all the time, and I block them all. But it is what's going on there.
That's casual gaming versus actual real people.
in depth.
That's
Yeah,
my bias.
like
As a
Battlefield
they're
3,
very
that's-
good casual games.
Snacking.
But, I mean, I'm inclined to think they're, that's smart.
I just think that we're closer to the breakthrough than most people realize. And maybe there's nobody there to push us through. I don't know. It's probably going to be somebody in his late teens or early 20s that's going to say, hey, I can take this Kinect-style technology and I can map it onto some sort of a game, and then I can lock 3 or 4 people into it over the internet. Right. Remember, a lot of the strategy games, when they first went online, they only allowed you to play against 3 other players.
Right.
So that's where it's going to start, is with a small number of people interacting, and then eventually somebody will develop the server technology, both software and hardware, to allow it to scale up.
Remember Ultima Online?
Mm-hmm.
Started with Ultima and then Ultima Online, and in its early days, that was kind of. So I don't know if there were any more pegs, even though it was before the word then, but that kind of environment, were there others of that scale back then in the 90s? But my understanding is everybody else said, okay, it's like Ultima Online, but we build on this, we improve on this, and that's where all these others have come out over time, with Guild Wars and World of Warcraft and so many others that are out there. But as far as I know, Ultima Online really kind of got that rolling as a concept. Despite all its flaws, it had a lot of flaws and a lot of issues, but it was a beginning platform to build concept from.
What about something? This is a little bit off topic, but it's a similar vein with gaming or with new enhancements. Although video games might be, eventually just kind of hit the popularity fad and then fade away to some extent, I think that using like the Wii technology, more interactive, I mean maybe that could be used in conjunction with kind of an online game where you have, you can hold things and move around and use, like 3D space. That'd be interesting, I think.
That's where it's going to have to go, because people are going to get tired of just sitting at the console.
Lawnmower Man. Morpeg Lawnmower Man.
I'm not familiar with that.
You're not familiar with the movie Lawnmower Man?
No, I only watch good movies, man.
Guy basically gets digitized into a virtual world. It was in the early 90s?
Well, Tron did that first.
Yes, Tron did that first. You bet they did.
Good old Tron.
You bet they did. This did it in a little bit different way, and it was actually much more sinister.
And then Captain Power came along.
Digitize them.
Well, I have a.
Yes.
Here's another question: is if people get interested in the story behind Lord of the Rings enough that they think, oh, great, The Hobbit, takes us back to kind of the backstory, I suppose you would call it, on the history before these beloved characters that we enjoyed. Okay, what happened to Bilbo before and all that. I wonder if it's at all possible that there might be kind of a resurgence in interest in history. I mean, I'm an educator, so I guess that's why I care, but if people can be interested in the backstory and the history of a virtual or fantasy world, would there be any connection or possibility that there might be a future rise in the backstory of our own country or of other countries? Given that it was presented in an interesting way.
So you mean a virtual environment of the real world, but it becomes an alternate developing history?
Trying to help people enjoy their actual own history, or real world history, but maybe using and borrowing some of the same things that we are using with fantasy worlds. That's just something to put out there.
So historical fiction type
could be
environments?
Or just exploring, interacting with, well, hopefully not just slaying people in various time periods.
Well, and that'd
be one way.
Right now, and see, that's where
that bores me.
Yeah, no, I agree, and that's where I think there's like the merging of Morpeg and places like Second Life to get the combinations. In Second Life, I don't think you can go to parties and do all these gatherings and everything, but I don't think you can adventure per se. I could be wrong about that. I've been in and out of Second Life. But I mean, the way with Morpegs and such that you go through character development and go on quests with other characters, etc.
I know a lot about Second Life.
Yeah, I've been in and out of it since its early beta days, but I never got really into it.
Well, even if it's just role playing, I suppose
a
that could
mixture
be,
of the two.
yeah, role playing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like World War II type, games and things like that. I mean, maybe there will be interest. I'm not sure. Maybe that'll increase.
Well, the World War II thing did actually kind of die off, like after. Just like Saved by Ryan brought up that in video.
Those things ebb and flow every decade, like everything else. Like Beowulf gets made every decade, sometimes twice in a decade.
You're right, like history,
Robin Hood.
like these forms of media do, make people have an interest in history because they get to shoot stuff in it. But whether they're actually learning much or not, I doubt that.
It depends on the game.
Yeah, they're the same. Anyway, we're
games and there are other games.
Okay, rope it back in.
Michael, did you have any other Tolkien topics or Tolkien event topics related?
No.
No. How about you, Brian?
Did you want me to? I mean.
No, I just think it's really amazing that we're gonna see some of these veteran actors, come out once more, and there's not a whole lot of mileage left in Ian McKellen and Christopher Lee, but it's exciting. Well, Christopher Lee, to some extent, I'm not sure how much he's going to feature in the films.
Right. Yeah, we don't know at this point how much.
I'm excited about the dragon side of things. We really haven't explored that with Middle-earth, even though dragons factor a lot in the history, in the past.
Yeah, especially up north.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people know about Benedict Cumberbatch through some of the things he's been in. Sherlock.
Never heard of the guy.
He's the newest Sherlock Holmes.
I know.
Yeah, the voice of Smaug. You say Smaug or Smaug, Michael? How do you pronounce that?
I say smog because I live in California.
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, how is it supposed to be pronounced?
I think Robert Inglis does the smell. Those of you listening in the channel, what's the AU formatting? What does it say the rules are for that in Tolkien's description? What is the origin of the name Smaug?
Smugian, or burrowing.
Michael?
It comes from an Anglo-Saxon word, like Smeagol. It has the same root as Smeagol. So it means like a burrowing worm or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Tolkien didn't create it from his language legendary. He borrowed, as he did many, directly from our current or ancient languages.
Right. Yeah. Well, dragons still pretty popular in a lot of stories and movies.
Certainly.
They're cool.
Yes. Dragons are cool. That's right.
This is going to be a terrible video. I just want you to know that. I keep watching myself on YouTube, and it's like, why am I the center focus here? I know it switches back when I talk, but, you see me going like...
Well, I'm trying to let you talk.
So I keep moving and shifting, and I'm trying to...
Too, yeah. So, anybody... topic conversation again. So Brian, you brought up a good one on the video games and such. So Michael seems to think that that's not going to have the impact that you were thinking it might. We'll have to see how that
industry
unfolds.
now it's kind of well trodden.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see how that goes. I think the price point is getting so high so fast.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly. They're going to need to rein that in, and that's why you see the rise of these pay-to-play, where you get to start out free, and if you want to accelerate things.
The video game industry itself is constantly growing at this point.
But they actually, the last couple of years, they actually had a downturn, and role-playing gaming and board games went up the last couple of years. Now this year, that's changed again, and it's kind of flattened, but the previous 2 years, I have a whole industry magazine about this, and I talked about it. I think last
So just
year.
recently it stopped.
No, for 2 years.
So for the last few years.
For 2 years, role-playing games and board games started shooting up 10-20%.
Well, kudos.
Video games really started to drop, and role-playing games were really. Pathfinder was a big. The Paizo Pathfinder really had a lot of benefit from that.
bankruptcies to take that market.
I argued, and I think we had an earlier Middle-earth episode about this, I argued that possibly that's because if you have a certain amount of income and you want to get the most entertainment bang for the buck, with the way video games are becoming, not only you got to put down $40, $60, $70 just to get the game, or some of these bundles $170 just to play the game, and then if they're online, you got to pay a monthly fee of $5, $10, $20 a month, and or pay to play where you get basic features, but if you want to really be able to do it, you got to keep forking out more dough as you go, which reminds me of the old arcade video game of Gauntlet. Did you ever play Gauntlet, Michael?
Battery is about to die.
Don't shoot the food. Warrior needs food badly. And you would literally, it was a quarter eater. It's just way more than any other game.
Because you're playing together.
No, because Asteroids you could roll over and just keep playing. In Pac-Man you could play for a very long time. If you were good, you could play for a long time. Gauntlet just had a counter and was designed. Michael was designed in a way to just, and the Gauntlet 2 was even worse. Gauntlet 2 was impossible, and that kind of flopped because they just went crazy with it. You literally just had to keep shoving quarters in to keep. It was a hack and slash. It was literally just a maze of hacking through, and even if you played conservatively, it was designed in a way that you just had to shovel quarters. And so I've seen a lot of that starting to increase with the pay-to-play stuff. So with role-playing games, typically, and this has been also the bane of role-playing games being successful, as in not financially, is you can buy a core set of rules and potentially play forever with just that core set of books. Now, it's nice if you can get supplements and add-ons and what have you, but really, if you're creative enough, once you have enough of a core to work with that you're comfortable with, you can just build and build and build derivative work indefinitely. And so that's the problem versus like the card games where you keep collecting and they keep obsoleting it, or the like Warhammer and such, where you got to keep buying the miniatures and then the new versions, etc. And those keep constant revenue streams for the companies. The role-playing games, you buy $30, $40, $60 worth of books, and now you have years of potential play.
See, I think that makes a lot more sense because you have, I think the dreamers and the visionaries and the people who come up with the idea, granted, they don't mind making good money, but I think the marketing, it kind of works against it, and you can make something a slave to the marketing, and I'd much rather, I guess, if I developed a game, know that people were enjoying it, even if I'm not making lots, shed loads of money over it, instead of trying to come up with new ways to, squeeze them.
Yeah. Are you talking about the video games?
Any kind of game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in general, with the role-playing games, I think it's awful. For the most part, I think Decipher was an exception, not for the people who worked on the game, but for the people who bought the license. Most of the role-playing games are a labor of love. They don't expect to make much money out of it. It's just trying to make it happen and realize it. And I don't know about Wizards of the Coast, but like with Decipher, the people working on the project, that was the labor of love. But the people in charge of the money for that, they really just wanted to cash in on the card games and the popularity, and really weren't interested in the role-playing game long term. At least that's the message I've got repeatedly. By the way, Hallian in the Tolkien Moot channel, earlier he said about when we were talking about soundtracks, he says he thinks there have been several soundtrack releases for the Lord of the Rings movies, each one more, quote, complete, unquote, than the previous ones. And I said, but have any actually been truly complete, or do you have to buy a half dozen to get them all? And he said, well, maybe the last one was pretty complete. And then also he said regarding the Smaug statement, I think there's something about Smaug in John Ratliff's The History of the Hobbit, which we have.
That's right.
And then Hallian says, we Scandinavians certainly don't pronounce it like smog, as in L.A. smog, or... Oh, great. Finnoscandians, I should say?
Finnoscandians.
Finnoscandians.
Because the Finns aren't, the Finns aren't Scandinavian.
He has it F-E-N-N.
Why is it the Finns aren't Scandinavian? They look Scandinavian to me.
Well, because their language...
I'm half Finnish.
Their language is not related to Danish and Swedish.
No, it's interesting.
Right. Well, I don't speak Irish, but I'm part Irish. Though I don't think that holds. I've looked at pictures of Finnish people, and they look Scandinavian to me. So
Yeah,
maybe they don't appreciate my saying that. I apologize to all the Finns who are offended. But you look Scandinavian to me.
Well, we can be inclusive and say that they are honorary Scandinavians.
What?
Offended?
Offended!
Oh!
Michael, you dealt a death blow.
No, that's what Jackson.
Jackson.
That's Jackson's fault.
Oh, I thought I missed what.
How the Finns offended.
Poor Hawk. I'm going to keep you busy. I'm going to talk every time you get that picture back.
Well, no, I can just click it to. I don't think it auto switches if I click on it.
Okay.
Not sure. So,
I'm going to grab that History of the Hobbit real quick just to see about that house since you referred to it.
He's going to go grab the History of the Hobbit. Please stand by. We're having literary difficulties. We'll be right back and after this quick station break. You are watching Middle-earth Radio on Tolkien Moot's YouTube channel live through a Google chat. That was a station break for Middle-earth Talk Radio at Tolkien Moot 2012 live through YouTube and a Google chat. And here's Mr. Gold Diapers himself. Yes.
Go ahead.
So while Huck's looking at the Ratliff novel, let me just ask. So with Google Plus Hangouts, kind of being another way for people to try to get together versus, I guess, like Skype and other things like that. Does anybody else use Google Plus for that or have tried it? No?
Use the other things, the documents and everything, collaborative.
Use the other Google features, but not so much the Google Plus Hangout.
Do you mean for role playing games?
No, I think we were just talking about in general.
There's a whole community of Google Plus Hangout broadcasters.
No, not just one-on-one.
And they do live broadcasts like this all the time. Like Universe Today, Fraser King, he does, I think, a chat every day with his partner.
Wow.
And they do, like, I think it's called Space Chat or Space Hangout or something like that. But there's this whole bunch of people that cross-promote each other's stuff through Hangouts all the time. I think Felicia Day does Hangouts a lot, too.
Oh, yeah, that's where I learned about it. It was from her various
promotions.
Doing that, yeah.
And she's not shy about naming her Hangouts in interesting, picturesque language, is she?
No, that is a yes.
So, please stand by while we have literary something or other. And you get to watch me drink my diet soda.
We're advertising McDonald's.
Yeah, this is a sponsoring.
Don't do that. We don't want to get into some trademark crap. And also blur it out. Oh, wait, sorry.
Oh, okay. I will stop promoting McDonald's, okay? So guess what went into that cup?
What?
No.
Oh. So in here, there's something about first appearance of name for Smog replaces Priften.
Oh.
P-R-Y-F-T-A-N.
Priften is also an Anglo-Saxon word, I believe.
Doesn't sound very dragonish to me.
Sounds kind of Welsh.
Well, say that to Chrysophylax.
Oh no, it's Priften.
Yes, Farmer Giles.
Priften's gonna kill us.
So yeah, he just talks about how Tolkien changed it. Used to be Priften and changed it to Smog. There's too many references in here for me to do this during the show. There's like a dozen references.
I could have told you that, but you got up and walked away.
Sorry.
I use that book as a source for a lot of the questions and answers that I put on middleearth.zenite.org.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I'm plugging middleearth.zenite.org, but
not that you would ever do that.
I have answers to over 200 questions about Tolkien and Middle-earth on middleearth.zenite.org.
That's been a little bit on hiatus, but that is a lot of work you did there.
And these are great books to read if you like reading, literary history. you should go straight from the peoples of Middle-earth into the history of the Hobbit, in my opinion.
And John Ratliff, the person who put these together, was our guest back on MerCon 4, and Michael was there as well. And the video for that is on the Tolkien Moot website and the YouTube Tolkien Moot. And so these are actually autographed by John as well.
That must have been really something.
It was. And I also interviewed John Ratliff for middleearth.znight.org.
You are incorrigible, aren't you?
I am. They call me Mr. Incorrigible.
The question is can something be corrigible then?
Yeah.
Maybe out-corrigible, I don't know. I mean, they're...
Hey, Kate, you're the one who's, has the master in English. How does it work?
How does what work?
If there's an incorrigible, is there a corrigible? I always wondered about that, like ruthless. You hear about ruthless people, but never ruthful people.
Well, it's the Johns who get into the most trouble, I think, but that's beside the point.
Well,
Sons of John Johnson.
I like.
I wasn't talking about John's getting in trouble.
Well, and in the little commentary there for the movie The Apprentices, how he talked about Tolkien and there was catastrophe and eucatastrophe.
Yes. Tolkien was always good at being able to coin something where there wasn't a word that existed in the language, and eucatastrophe is a good example of that.
But notice he didn't use me catastrophe. Or us catastrophe, or our catastrophe. It's always got to be you catastrophe.
You couldn't use the I catastrophe because Apple would probably give him grief.
Yeah.
They had an I catastrophe earlier this week.
Yeah. Okay, we're reaching our time point here.
Oh, I'd say we've exceeded it.
Yeah, well, we started a little late, so it kind of works out about right.
So
There you
the
go.
newest iTablet is going to be the iCatastrophe.
Yeah. Okay. So again, Tolkien-related topics. Anybody have some questions about? Yes, Austin.
Do you three think that they will have other authors who will take Tolkien's ideas, expand it past to several different ages, like making it a fourth age, fifth age, and having new villains rise up and fall?
Tolkien did some of that himself. He sketched out some of it. He sketched out a little bit of the Fourth Age, Aragorn's son, and when he was king, and the new Shadow. He hinted about, Fifth Age, and we're in. I forget what he said our age was, 6th, 7th, 8th, something like that. Tolkien himself actually sketched some of that out. As far as derivative works, that's a whole copyright issue that, assuming not another extension, is going to be at least 2035 before derivative works and such can even be allowed.
It's not really a copyright issue, it's a trademark issue.
Well,
Mickey Mouse.
that too, but it's locked up in the way, with the Mickey Mouse.
It's not going to happen within Christopher Tolkien's lifetime, that's for sure.
Well,
No, I think probably not.
But he's what, 89, 91, something?
It's young for an ant.
Yeah. Any idea who they have intending to take over that?
I believe his son is working with him on the Tolkien estate. Don't hold me with that.
Which son is that?
Is that Michael? No, no. It's a family name though. I think.
Bear with me, because it was in the Le Monde article.
While you do that, Hallian pointed out another resource to, of course, check about the Smog origin would be the annotated Hobbit.
Very good.
Definitely.
Thanks.
Thanks, Hallian, once again.
It's probably pretty late in Scandinavia.
Yeah, they're staying. I think it's 2 or 3 in the morning over there. They've been really good sports about that. Artemir and Hallian and such have been pretty good about staying on there.
If we want some more European listeners, maybe next year for Tolkien Moot, we should put the radio broadcast a little earlier.
Well, we did that during some of the busier moots. Again, this was kind of a mini moot, and so I did a lot less promotion. And
Sure.
we did do, Michael's
Raw
Hobbit and such was much more around the noon time.
Right.
And yeah, we've done that for them for larger moots, and they've been appreciative. And we've usually had a lot more traffic then.
Of course, all those people in Hawaii, then, of course, it's too early in the morning for them, right?
Hellion said maybe Adam Tolkien?
I think so. I'm trying to bring it up.
Okay.
Adam, the son of Christopher and Bailey.
Way to go, Hellion. Spot on. So, what Christopher Tolkien has done is just gathered all the bits and pieces of a gazillion little ideas that Tolkien wrote down and tried to put it all together in some sort of comprehensive way. And that is one heck of a challenge. And it creates contradiction, but at least he's put it out there for everybody to look through and have as a resource, which, I mean, his patience, Job doesn't even cut it. For him to go through Tolkien's sprawl at best and try to piece it all together, I mean, that is an incredible body of work to try. And there's still more. I mean, Christopher Tolkien spent his life trying to piece this together, and it's still
I think his dad wrote a great story, but I think it was a lot easier for him to write the story than for his son to try to
piece it together.
Yeah.
How come his son is okay living in the shadow of his father completely? I mean,
well, he's a professor, and he's done. I mean, I think he's not a for fame hog in any way.
No,
he doesn't have that level of ambition per se.
Yeah, my impression was that Christopher Tolkien, from the very beginning, his dad involved him. And
with the maps and everything. He was key to the map making.
Storytelling.
The storytelling for when he was small, that J.R.R. always told stories to his kids, and I think so because of that he felt probably more well versed than many people, and it seemed natural to take that on.
And thanks so much that he did.
Exactly.
Imagine all the work. We would not have the Silmarillion.
Mm-hmm.
We would not have the 13 Histories of Middle-earth books.
Yeah.
We would not have the Children of Húrin, which is compilation from those put into a more comprehensive whole. There's others we would have because of other scholars. I think the Gudrun and piece was a different.
There's some good scholarship out there, but my hope personally would be that if they do make more films, that there would be some way. I know so far they've said nothing from the Silmarillion, has to come from The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings or whatever. But I think it'd be great to bring some of those stories, like Beren and Luthien, for example, would make a great movie.
Right.
And I think it would touch both people who love Tolkien stories as well as people who've never read it before, but just love a good story.
I think you can expect a Silmarillion movie in about 85 to 90 years.
Fantastic.
Actually, I'd like to see some sort of like BBC series of it, just ongoing,
Like Downton Abbey or something.
I don't think Christopher is going to let those rights go.
Yeah.
He probably won't spring for it.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah, you're probably right. But any idea what Adam's like?
No, no idea.
Okay.
The people I know who know the Tolkien family have never mentioned Adam to me. So I have no. I mean, I suppose I could ask, but well, what's your opinion about Adam Tolkien? How can we exploit him after Christopher's gone? Every Tolkien scholar in the world would say, "Well, Martinez is no longer going to be on our list." It's funny the lines that are drawn, on the basis of who has access to the Tolkien family. You have to be very careful in inviting these people to participate in anything because if there's any connection at all to the movies, they will turn you down flat in order to maintain their relationship with the Tolkien estate.
Wow.
So just take that for what it's worth.
Okay, any other questions? That was a good question there, Austin. Ian? Paul? Rick? Scott? I think we're pretty good. Brian, did you get anything you want?
That's good.
Michael, any last words?
No, just don't forget the disclaimer.
Pardon me?
The disclaimer. You've been listening to Middle Earth Talk Radio. The opinions expressed herein are...
On July 15th, 2012, Sunday, live from Tolkien Moot, at least live now, but after this point, of course, it will be recorded.
In Spokane, Washington.
They waited a whole hour to hear that.
This is not endorsed or supported by any of the Tolkien copyright holders and licensors and licensees. That includes Tolkien Enterprises, Middle-earth Enterprises, Salzance Company, DBA, New Line Cinema, Peter Jackson, any of the list goes on, the Tolkien Estate, or any others in the vast morass of the Tolkien intellectual property licensing or cacophony. So, Michael, thank you so much. This was a different way of doing things. You can definitely see some pluses and minuses to this, but I appreciate you being a good sport and giving it a try with the technology.
Google pluses, Michael minuses. Yeah.
Good talking with you, Michael.
Good talk with you, Brian.
All the best to you. Take care. And wherever you may be well.
Ciao. Ciao. Arrivederci. So long. Bye.
Bye.
Goodbye.